Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Community Support Grant Final Report webinar. My name is Amara Faring, and I am the Community Development and Arts Learning Specialist for the Wyoming Arts Council.
And I'm Kashmir Beland. I'm the Grants and Administration Manager for the Wyoming Arts Council.
So you've probably talked to one of us throughout your process here, but we just wanted to give you a few tips and tricks and some more information about how to fill out the final report. And so we'll kick it over to Kashmir to start us off. She's going to tell you where to find the report, when the report is due, and how to add collaborators if you need somebody else to help you with your final report. Take it away, Kashmir.
Okay, so when you first get all of your information from us in your reward email, you'll get a link to your final report. And then you'll also get another reminder email 60 days out from when your report is due. It is due 60 days after your project end date, which is what you put in your application. So those are automatic reminder emails that go out, and then I'll touch base if we still haven't gotten your report. But what you can do is when you log into Foundant, you'll go to immediately to your applicant dashboard here. And if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see your follow-up forms for whatever active requests that you currently have. So right now, I just have the one. It's the final report for FY24. So you'll see on the right here, we have a little edit button. And to just work on your report, you just need to click on that. And it'll bring you into all of your questions. Now we're going to go through these step by step, but I just want to point out something at the very bottom to begin with here. We do have a feature that allows you to save it, so you don't have to do it all in one sitting. You can come back to it and work on it as you have time, or if other people need to work on it as well. And at the top here, we do have the collaborate feature, so you can invite others to collaborate on your final report. If you have other board members or folks in your organization who need to review things before you actually hit submit. So those are just a couple of the nifty little features that we've got on here. So I think we are ready to just start from the beginning with our operating and project support.
Awesome. And one question, Kashmir, when is the report due?
It is due 60 days after your project end date. So it automatically decides that from what you put in your application. So if something looks weird to you of when it's due, just let us know. But it also pulls it up here on your top of your application or of your final report. It's got your little due date right there.
Perfect. Thank you. So let's talk about kind of the bulk of the final report. The narrative sections is what I will be covering. You will see here at the top that the proposal name and the operating and project support and the arts learning support there. All of those narratives are pulled in from your application. So this is not something that you will have to fill out, but it is great and easy for us to be able to, once we're reading through your final report, to kind of go back and see what you wrote. It's also great for you to go back and see what you wrote and make sure that you've hit all the goals and all of the projects that you've done. So it's a great reminder tool. So let's go ahead and talk about project changes here. So project changes are supposed to be approved by the Arts Council staff. It's me who you call to talk about, hey, I have this project change and I need to talk to somebody about it. You can also reach out to Kashmir and she'll usually send you over to me and we'll just kind of talk about it, but those do need to be approved prior. We do know that life happens sometimes though, and that you may have to make a last minute decision. And that's totally fine too. We just ask that you contact us as soon as you can to tell us that you've had this change. We just want to make sure that it goes with the grant that you wrote, that you're still within the eligibility guidelines, all of that good stuff. And so just give me a little call and we'll talk about it. But this is also the place where you'll talk about those changes. And if you experienced any challenges while you were doing that and what those changes look like, were you still able to meet the expectations that you wrote in the grant? So this is a great place to do that. Project changes can be as small as like just a date change, or maybe you had an artist that couldn't come, so you filled in with another artist, or they can be as big as, hey, our program completely fell through, and this is what it looked like. Hopefully you've talked to me about it, but this is where you'll put all that information. So let's go ahead and move down to the impact of grant funds. So this is where you can describe and tell us, how did these funds impact your community? Was that an expected thing? Like you knew, hey, this grant funding was going to be great so that we could bring people into our programs, or like maybe an unexpected one was like you had a participant that really, really took what you taught them to heart, or they saw a show that they really loved. So those are great things to see the impact. You can keep this fairly brief. You can expand if you want, but just a little something to tell us about those impacts is great for us. It's great for us to talk to the board, other community members. We would love to know. So let's go to the evaluation section. So I think one of the things to keep in mind here when you're going through your final report is to follow the prompts. So all of the prompts are listed right below the title. And so you'll see that this prompt is asking you a couple things. So it's really nice to have information regarding your organization's methods for feedback and how the organization measured that impact. So some of the questions you can ask yourself are, did you see an increase in participants or support? Did the organization use paper evaluation forms? Did the organization get feedback face-to-face? And if you did, how did the organization then track that information and feedback? It's important to comment on how your organization used the feedback or is planning to use the feedback to advance your organization's mission and goals, and how the feedback will help you grow and change in the future. So we're kind of looking for a few different things. How did you do it? How are you planning to use it? We love to know. It's good to see those things. It also helps us see that you're working towards being a sustainable organization and that you are truly collaborating with your community. So just a couple things to keep in mind. It's important to make sure you elaborate. So let's talk about the DEI section. So this section, I feel like we would love to see a few things. Some people don't elaborate. Some people give us a lot of information. It's great to give us information. Sometimes I find that when I'm reading through final reports, people don't necessarily, or organizations don't necessarily know that they're doing DEI work. So it's important to kind of look and see, okay, what are non-dominant communities? And some of those include people with disabilities, older adults, veterans, low-income communities, indigenous communities, LGBTQIA+ communities, etc. It's something that you can Google too. So if you're like, hey, what are a list of non-dominant communities? They'll give you a list of every non-dominant community, and you may not realize that you've been working with them, which is really cool. So that's a good step to take when you're filling out this section. And then talking about, what work did your organization do? So, did you adopt standards that your organization is following to do the DEI work? Maybe you have accommodations for people who need it, but maybe this was the first time you marketed those accommodations. So that's something that you can add in there. Did you have partnerships and collaborations with other organizations that maybe focus on non-dominant communities? Did you use feedback that you got about DEI efforts? Did your representation increase? Maybe you have accessible spaces for the first time. Did you do arts education or outreach to specific groups? Did you personally reach out to non-dominant communities to invite them to participate? Maybe you had a training for staff. These are all things that you can include in this narrative, talking about what your initiatives are. And I give you that list purely because sometimes you don't realize that that is part of your DEI efforts. So it's good to go back and think about what you've been doing and add that here. Once again, follow the prompt. We've got it right there for you. So that way you can talk about what you've been doing, what changes you plan to make in the future. We'd love to know all of those things. When we're talking specifically about the feedback, so in this next section, it says Arts Council support and resources. We are wanting feedback on what we can offer. I will say that, and what we can offer specifically for ADA and DEI initiatives, this is specifically for that kind of feedback. I will say that it's not super helpful to give a general statement here. So for example, saying like DEI training for all artists and arts organizations, that's great. It definitely gives us a direction, but a little more elaboration on what exactly your organization is looking for would be super helpful here. And what I mean by that is, are you looking for virtual workshops that you can attend? Are you looking for professional development opportunities? Or are you looking to send your staff to a DEI training? You know, are you looking to hire someone to come in and work with you? Are you looking for a specific piece of DEI training, like how to make a space more accessible? Maybe your organization is at the beginning of its DEI work and you need a place to start. So I would say the more info, the better here about what you are specifically looking for DEI training will then help us find the things that maybe you're looking for and other organizations are looking for. So the more specific, the better. And with that, I think, Kashmir, am I kicking it over to you? Hold on, I can't. Oh no, photos. Let's talk about photos. Okay, so this is a really awesome thing. We love to see what you're doing, and we also love to showcase what you're doing. So there's a section here for supporting media where you can upload 4 photographs of your work, you know, whether that's like classes or performances, or maybe it's an exhibit, or maybe it's artists working on something, whatever that is for your organization. This is a great place to put those photos. We use these photos in our Artscapes magazine, which we send out statewide. We also use it in our social media and some of our marketing materials because, once again, we love to showcase the work that you are doing as organizations. It's important to know that if you are uploading these photos, you need to have permission. So if it's not a photo that you took, but you had a photographer come in, make sure you have permission to share these. It's also important to make sure that the people that you are uploading into our database here, that those people are okay with you sharing photos of them. And then you'll also notice that at the bottom here, there's a photograph caption. So also we need to know what the photo is, who's in it, the who, what, where, when, why, if you will. So please upload those. We'd love to see what you're doing and showcase it. And with that, I'll kick it over to Kashmir.
All right, thank you. So next we're going to talk about the NEA required questions. And so this kind of can throw people off sometimes, but they are really helpful because they demonstrate how the benefit of public funding and also provides accountability for the federal funds that we are using. So these directions that I'm going to give you and that are already listed in here are provided by NASA and the NEA, who reviews our final reports. So first, we just kind of go through how we were acknowledged and how the NEA was acknowledged. In your award email that you receive from us, we do let you know that you will need to provide acknowledgement of your award, whether that's a banner at a festival or something on your programs that you're handing out to people. We do have logos available on our website that you can use. And if you have any questions, feel free to give us a chat about that. But then we also jump in here to the youth and adults engaged. These are very similar questions. Obviously, just the target age ranges are different. The biggest thing that you want to remember is not to inflate your numbers in these. You want to include your actual audience members and not those that might be reached through internet, like if you have something virtual or something like that. Right now, the NEA just wants people who are directly involved with the programming that you're doing. So then we move down here, and we do provide a lot of these directions in here, but just to kind of summarize them for you. And then artists directly involved, they suggest that you include for example, if you're doing an exhibition or something, that you include living artists, you know, even if their work wasn't provided specifically by them, but it was provided by an institution. That's something that people might not necessarily think about. And then we have just some more questions about the populations that were benefited. So by age, by distinct groups. And then it does give you a little bit more explanation area here. And, if you're not sure, you can always select no single group, just so, if there wasn't one specific group that was targeted in these. And just use your best estimate. We do encourage you to take numbers while you're there and kind of scan your crowd just to know who your audience is. And that's something we also remind you of in your award email. And then we get down to project type. So this is actually pulled in from your application. So it just depends on which coding you are using. So in here, you'll see that there's several options that were that you had to select from in your original application. And if you're not sure, exactly where you might fit into these, you can always give us a call and ask us. We do have like a more detailed listing of these, so we can help you out with that if you're not sure. So depending on what you had, we do ask for locations after, so if you had audience services as your selected project type, you do have to provide us with some addresses. So we can take up to 10 in this report. And, given how rural our state is and depending on where you are, you might not have a physical address where the event took place. So they do ask that you put in your latitude and longitude. If you're not sure, you can always use something like Google Maps later on to even just try to pinpoint and get a general idea of where your latitude and longitude were. These are just really helpful to show the impact of where the arts are taking place in our state, just especially since it's so rural, just to show our local lawmakers, how the money that we get is impacting everyone. So as we scroll down here, you'll just see we do have all the venue locations. And then something else on here too, is just the number of days that the activity took place. It might be 1, it might be 30, just depending on what you have going on. And as we scroll down some more, let's see what else we have. And I think that brings us to the budget. So I'll kick it back over to you, Amara.
Perfect. Would you mind zooming in on this just a little bit? Just so that we can see it a little bit bigger, and that way I can make sure I'm talking about the numbers that we've got going on in there. Okay. So let's talk about the budget section. I know that this section can be a little intimidating to people because numbers can be intimidating, but we're going to walk through each one and I'll kind of talk to you about what we're looking for and what it should look like. So you'll notice up here that there's a section that says total grant amount awarded. And in here it says 15,000. This is pulled over. So this is automatically populated for you depending on how much money you got in your grant. So that's fixated there. You'll notice that the next section is the grant amount spent. So that number, the grant amount spent, should also say 15,000. So those two should match. We want you to spend all of the grant money. We don't want it back. So make sure that you're spending all of your grant money and that those two match there. You'll also notice that there is a prompt. It says this number cannot be more than 50% of your total cash expenses. So this is where we're seeing that you've made your match. So an easy way to do this is to take or an easy way to show that you've met your match is to take your grant amount and add it to itself. So we're going to do that together right here. So we've got 15,000, right? This should be pretty easy math, but I'm still going to do it. Plus 15,000. So we've got 30,000, right? That is how we know you've met your match. The sum, right? The sum of this, the two grants, like the grant added to itself, should be equal to or greater than your actual total cash expenses. So in your actual total cash expenses, it either needs to say $30,000 or more. That's how we know you've met your match. when I'm going through these and I come across a total cash expenses that is less than the grant added to itself, I will send it back to you and let you know that you have not met your 50% match and that you need to verify your budget. But that is a really easy way to know if you've met your match or not. It's just by doubling the grant amount and then putting it in your total cash expenses as either equal to or more than that sum. If you have questions about that when you're going through this, please feel free to reach out to me. We can definitely walk through this together. Once again, it's really important to follow the prompts on this, right? So next we've got the actual income generated by applicant, and you'll notice that it's the total income for this project that does not include the total grant amount. So you should not be putting your grant amount in this section. Okay, don't do that. We just want to know what your actual income is generated. Then the next one is your actual total cash income. And as you can see there, it says this should be your actual cash income generated by the applicant plus your grant amount. So that's where you put those two together, is in the actual total cash income. And then we've got the actual total in-kind contributions. Now remember, in-kind is goods and services that were donated and not cash. So some people do have these, some people don't, and that's okay. But just make sure that if you are going to include your in-kind donations, that it does not include cash, and that you know how much people donated to you based on those goods and services. So once again, if you have questions about the budget, please feel free to reach out to me and we can work through it together. And with that, I'll kick it back over to Kashmir to talk about the directory.
Thank you. So one last thing, we ask you to do this in your application, but then it's also a nice reminder here in the final report. Please share your information on our directory, just because we do have a lot of folks who call asking, you know, hey, do you have an organization who does this? Do you know of an organization who does that? We always direct them to the directory just to find folks. And it's just a great way for you to find people or organizations, or for them to find you. So we always love for you to take part in that. You wouldn't believe how many calls we get. So it's always a nice thing to do. And then just, you know, the final thing you have is your final report certification statement, you know, just saying that you've answered everything true and correctly, and that, you know, someone else has looked over your report just to make sure that everything looks good. And then you just, you know, select yes or no here. And then the final thing you do is you just need to hit submit. You will get an email telling you that you have submitted your report. So if you don't get one of those, just give me a call and I can look that up for you and make sure we've got it. And yeah, so I think that pretty much covers all of that. And let me just share again. Just going to share our contact information here. So if anybody has questions, I have both Amara and my email and phone number on here. We're here all the time, so always ask us questions. We don't mind at all.
Yeah. Feel free to reach out to us. A good rule of thumb too is I usually am looking at the content, while Kashmir is usually looking at like the NEA kind of logistical stuff. But we both can answer those questions. So feel free, if you contact Kashmir first, she can definitely still help you, and she may toss you over to me, and vice versa. But yeah, we are always here to help, and we can't wait to see what you've done throughout the year. It's always my favorite part. I love reading through them to see what you've been doing. Yeah.
And this one last thing, this webinar will be on our website and on our YouTube channel. So if you need to come back and reference it, it will live out on the internet for you.
Yeah. Thank you all for watching this, and we'll talk to you soon.